Yo, what is going on, guys? It's C-Brad bringing y'all a different type of video today. I really kind of wanted to dive into the meta of the second base position as it stands in MLB The Show 19 right now, and kind of talk about why it's always important to take a step back and make sure you're not just following the meta blindly, and really establish what the meta is and if it should be changing at all. So I think second base is a great example for this type of thing, because if you ask many of the top players in the game right now, they would pretty much all consensus tell you that Roberto Alomar is the best second baseman in the game. I think a lot of that has to do with nostalgia, because he's been out for so long, he's been so many people's second baseman for so long. People have a lot of good memories of hitting clutch hits or home runs or whatever with him. But I'm here to make the case that he's no longer the best option at second base in the game anymore, and that it's often important to really understand if you're just following the meta or if the meta needs to be broken in some way, and this is true for any video game. But in my opinion, Roberto Alomar is the third best option at second base right now. I will talk about the other two guys, but first I want to talk about the flaws with Roberto Alomar and why I no longer think he's the best. So obviously everyone thinks he's the best because switch hitter, hits for a decent amount of power, great fielding, great speed, etc. There are two huge flaws with Roberto Alomar, and I'm going to hide my face cam so you can see the stats that I have with him. Two huge flaws with Roberto Alomar. The first one being he does not hit for remotely close to the same amount of power as the other two options over the long run, and also he is so much worse against left-handed pitching, it's crazy. So you can take a look at my stats with Robbie Alomar. 765 plate appearances over the course of MLB The Show 19, and only 40 home runs during that entire time. So if you do the math on this, it's about 16 plate appearances per home run, which is actually insanely low. Like, you're missing out on a lot of power, at least I am. Just to back out and show you some other guys for perspective, I picked up Honus Wagner, haven't used him a lot, only 178 plate appearances, but this is already like 9 plate appearances per home run, and most of the guys that I use are sitting right around 9. Honus is around 9. I know Lou Gehrig, whoops, switch lineups on accident. I know Lou Gehrig is right around 9 through 400 plate appearances. Granted, Lou Gehrig is a power hitter. Frank Thomas, same thing, around 9 plate appearances per home run. But even someone like Willie Mays, who's technically a speed guy, still right around 9 plate appearances per home run. So what I'm trying to get at is that 16 plate appearances per home run is almost half as efficient as other options that you may have power-wise at the position. And this is really important because obviously home runs are the #1 way to generate runs within a game. And so this is something that I think a lot of people overlook, because Robbie does hit a lot of singles and doubles, and that's better than making outs, but really lacking a lot of power from Robbie in the long run. You can tell by OPS as well. Again, I'm not trying to show you these stats to brag or anything. I'm just trying to put into perspective how much power you're losing. So Willie Mays around 1300 OPS. Going back to Gehrig, 1250 OPS. So all these guys have significantly higher OPSs. Ty Cobb is a little lower, which is another guy that you're really lacking in power in, and is one of the reasons I'm not playing him as much. But yeah, Honus was around 1500. Granted, once again, not a lot of plate appearances, but I think you guys get the point. There are better options hitting wise than Robbie Alomar, is what I'm trying to get at, and I don't think people realize this. Also, just to get this out of the way, you can tell that none of these stats were accumulated through playing offline. These are all online stats, because I have about 3.5 plate appearances per game. So we can just get that out of the way, because there's always one guy in the comments section saying you probably got these numbers from Conquest. Very obviously did not. The other flaw with Robbie Alomar is how much worse he hits left-handed pitching. This is a bigger deal than I think people give it credit for as well. You can see my splits. I'm hitting 73 points higher versus righties than versus lefties. This is a big deal, and has become a bigger deal as the year has moved along, because more and more impactful left-handed hitters have come out that have joined people's lineups and that need to be protected in those lineups. And Roberto Alomar just does not protect left-handed hitting as well as the other two options that I'm going to talk about, as well as hitting much worse and for probably less power. I mean, I can look. Granted, the plate appearances are off, but almost double hits righties versus lefties. You'd have to look at bats. So a hit every 3 at-bats versus a hit every like 2.5 at-bats. So yeah, definitely worse. But I think you guys get the point. What I'm trying to get at is you should be thinking about if a guy is really the best guy, you know what I mean? And so we're going to talk about the other 2 options that I think are better than Robbie Alomar for second base right now. The other guy is on your screen. It's going to be Rogers Hornsby. I cannot describe to you guys enough just how well of a hitting card this is. If you have not completed the Live Series collections yet this year, you need to get on it. Adding Willie Mays and Rogers Hornsby to your lineup is so huge, especially for protecting those lefties like I have already mentioned. But we can take a look at Rogers Hornsby's stats on my main account. Once again, right around 9 plate appearances for home run, which is 7 less plate appearances per home run than Robbie Alomar. Significantly higher OPS, about 230 points higher than Robbie Alomar, and 417 batting average. I understand is kind of insane, but even if you were to take that down 100 points, maybe my OPS drops 150 points, and it's still about 100 points higher than Robbie Alomar. So I think Hornsby is the best second baseman in the game right now, just for his bat, and I have noticed that second base fielding has mattered less and less as the game has gone along. I just don't see a lot of second basemen really messing up anymore, even with poor fielding stats, and so I really think Rogers is the move over Roberto Alomar right now. So we're going to go ahead and hop over to an alt account and talk about the third guy that I want to mention for this video, and then we'll go ahead and wrap things up. Alright, so we are over on the alt account, and we're going to talk about the better version of Roberto Alomar, in my opinion, right now, which is Finest Ketel Marte. This card, like I said, I think is just a slightly better version of Robbie Alomar in every way. I'm going to hide the face cam again so you can see the stats. Once again, we're going to get the plate appearances guy and say that I'm playing Conquest a lot in the comment section. I do only have about 2.5 plate appearances per game with this Ketel Marte, but this is for a couple reasons, mostly being I did play probably 5 Conquest games because this was the account that was new account to World Series, and I needed to get some of the packs from that. Additionally, he was hitting in the 8 hole for me, which means less plate appearances per game, and on top of that, this account had to grind from 0 rating all the way up to 900 rating, and when you're grinding from 0 rating up until about maybe 600, 700, you end up getting a lot of rage quits just from people who aren't having any of it when you're beasting on them. So that's why, but still 2.5 is a fair amount of plate appearances per game, I would say. But I'm going to tell you guys why I would prefer Finest Ketel Marte over Roberto Alomar right now, and it's because he directly impacts the areas that Roberto Alomar does not. So you can take a look at my OPS, significantly higher than Roberto Alomar's was at 1100. This one is about 180 points higher, about a little over 10 plate appearances per home run, which is still lower than my other guys, but still way better than Roberto Alomar, much better power than Robbie. If you're really into the switch hitting second baseman thing like I am, I just think Ketel Marte is the better option right now overall. And if we go and look at the splits, this is where it really takes off. Obviously, Ketel Marte's attributes are much better versus lefties, and this is actually a huge deal. You can see I'm hitting 101 points higher versus lefties with Ketel Marte. And this is something that Ketel Marte provides for you that Roberto Alomar does not, and that is protection against left-handed pitching. Ketel Marte just absolutely mashes left-handed pitching, and I think it's a really huge upside that people don't give him credit for, especially considering that's one of the huge flaws with Roberto Alomar. Also want to talk about that this was my starting second baseman when this account grinded to top 50 last season, and so a lot of these numbers actually came on Legend as well. So there is a potential that these numbers could have been even better than this if I hadn't grinded for top 50, if I had just stuck around 900 rating, I guess. But anyway, long story short, if you're using Roberto Alomar at second base, please give Ketel Marte and Rogers Hornsby a look, because I really think at this point in the year it's worth reevaluating who truly is the best second baseman in the game. I think people are kind of just blindly following the Roberto Alomar meta, as I was myself as well, until I took a step back and really started diving into the numbers. But if I had to rank re-rank the tier list for second baseman as it stands right now. I think Rogers Hornsby is far and away the best second baseman in the game, and I think Ketel Marte is number 2 ahead of Roberto Alomar, who is number 3. So hope you guys got something out of this video. I know it was kind of a long one, kind of a lot of talking, but I hope it can kind of convey how I like to think about cards and really look at the numbers. And it's important to always take a step back, look at your numbers with guys, how you're performing, and make sure you're being objective and really determining like who is the best player for me, who is the best player in the game. Are people making the right decisions with their lineup? You know, this line of thinking will help you become a better player in the long run. So if you made it this far, appreciate you guys watching. As always, I love all of you, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.